All right, let's turn to some of the issues beyond the shores of Africa now, even though it will appear over time it's beginning to have a global implication. That is the tension, well, some people say it's conflict between Israel and Iran. And this is particularly curious and interesting, given that it has always been between Israel and Hamas following the October 7 attacks that impacted Israel and then has now, if you like, boomeranged in such a way that you have several other countries beginning to get involved in it. Now, let's fast forward to just Sunday yesterday when the U.S. Announced that it had bombed 3 nuclear sites in Iran. Of course, as expected, Iran has retaliated, hitting Israel by way of reprisal. Now, for starters, Iran understands that it's a proxy war being fought by the U.S. against Iran, using, in this case, Israel as the proxy. Now, at this point, the conversation has pivoted a little because questions are being asked now as to what happens going forward, because it will appear the strikes will continue. In the middle of all that, there are countries, including the United Kingdom, now saying there is no better time to de-escalate than now. Let's not also forget that there was the OIC event going on in Istanbul, Turkey, where the foreign minister of Iran was in attendance, from where he also announced that the U.S. and Israel have crossed what he called the big red line. While the U.S. has said, look, this has nothing to do with the ambition to push for a regime change in Iran, Israel and the entire Western world say that Iran cannot, of course, that has been said with so much of emphasis over time, have nuclear weapon. And there are analysts, there are also even, well, politically exposed people on the global stage who say that it is unfair for Israel and the global West to have that conversation, because they say if Russia, the UK, the US, and Israel can have, well, nuclear weapons, why would you deny Iran the opportunity to do that? Well, their argument is that Iran cannot be trusted with such magnitude of resource. The conversation just gets much more interesting by the day now, doesn't it? My guest here will help us find some sense in this development this morning. I'm joined by Professor Abubakar Ibrahim, a global TV security and political analyst. Prof, first of all, I want to believe you had a great weekend in spite of all of this bombing that happened in the Middle East on Sunday. Where do we begin from? You and I have been here, we've talked about the two-state solution. That has not worked. As a matter of fact, if anything has changed, it is the fact and the reality that this tension just continue to de-escalate. What are your thoughts?
Well, the whole thing falls under global security, and when you're talking of global security, you're talking of the whole world security as it is. But I will look at the part each and every one of these countries or the nations are playing under these issues as regard the Hamas, the Israel, and Iran. Israel, to me, is just a micro-mini country society, though over time we should know that Israel has become a force to be reckoned with, backed by some Western imperialists for their own personal gains and benefits. American is not just taking that action because they over the years because they so much love Israel, but it is because the Jews has done a lot of research, and the productive organ of those research goes to the benefit of American. Be as it may, we also know that when you are a minority in the circle of majorities, you also have a lot of ways to show yourself by self-aggrandizement. Israel over the years has shown that self-aggrandizement because they are minority under the majorities. But the whole thing fall back to American backing Israel all over the years. Al-Qaeda, Hamas, and the rest are all triplet organizations organized by the CIA of America. So whether Israel was against the Hamas or not, America knows what they are doing. They are protecting their investment. They are protecting the intellectual properties that are in Israel, because Israel is just a research society. So they sell their painted materials to America and to other Western nations. When we come politically, you should also know that Benjamin Netanyahu has already been the leader of the Israelis for almost 50 years now, and still counting. And he's not ready to relinquish power to anybody. So
just for a second, Prof, how do we establish that he has been the leader of Israel for that long? I mean, 5 decades, when we have had other prime ministers, including Ariel Sharon, blessed memory.
Yes, but I have every template to say I am going today, just manage the seat for me and come back. Just like what we're having here when Babangida said he's stepping aside. So if I step aside and put you there as a lump and come back to the same seat, does not make me one of the most unique leaders. I still have the authority of leadership in that place. So if I put my storage there and come back to power, makes me not irrelevant. I still hold the authority and power of that leadership. So we should not say he left and somebody took over and came back again. You see, don't he have a term? He's supposed to finish a term and go and rest. So be as it may, even as this issue is interrelated with the political issues in Israel and the rest, we should also know that these people have fought dirty with the Palestinians and never want the West Bank and some other parcels of the Palestinians to exist. And Iran, whether we have a blow game or what, the shares, these nations are not just what you said, it's a self-centered, one unique Islamic nation. No. The numbers of Muslims in Iran are just about 56 to 60% of Iranians. The remaining ones are not Muslims. So we should not go religion. And if you come to Israel, Israelis cannot tell me that they are Christians. In no way not Christians.
That's right.
So if you look at it, it's not really centralized religiously, even as we in Africa, mostly Nigerians, take Israelis as Christians. We should know and understand that they are not Christians. So it was not a religion template. It's built on personal benefits and gains from these nations. The part of America as what America has done is just to tell the whole world that we have played a role when this happened. But I want to ask a question. If not for only Nigeria, which nation will have uranium deposit in its possession and will have no nuclear armament? Because from my study in Nigeria, for example, the uranium in Taraba to Gombe, down to some part of Bauchi, can fetch Nigeria over 10 trillion to 70 trillion dollars.
That's on the economic side.
Yes, that is Nigeria. So will you have such deposit, then now sell the same uranium to some people and who will utilize it against you in the name that there is a treaty or a treaty that says you cannot develop uranium or nuclear armaments, whereas you can get electricity from nuclear, you can get every other benefit from nuclear. So you want me to depends on your technology, why my own materials are being used to develop your technology and I buy from you? even from the cell phones you buy are uranium materials. So who will fail in technology? Why you benefit from such technology? That is the question. So when I get to a point when people asked me questions and said, why must Iran fraud the treaty? Then the question is that why must Iran sell their uranium to a foreign body who will develop that against them? Just as I have said, if Nigeria, for example, has uranium in Taraba, to Gombe, and some part of Bauchi, and this can fetch between 7 to whatever amount in dollars, in trillions, why must I sell this to a foreign nation to my own detriment, whereas I can still use the same uranium deposit to develop my own technology? So I am a consuming country having materials for my own development. Why do we say the materials are nearest to the market and production? So if I am getting my uranium, why can't I use it? So also Iran has deposit of uranium, a lot of deposit of uranium, and they are using it to their own benefit. If you know that the nuclear armaments and weapons already developed by American are about 5,000 plus warheads, whereas I don't think Iran has up to 200 or up to 300 warheads. So if you look at all these, put them together, you find out that yes, Iran is stronger in nuclear armament more than Israel. But Israel has a strong security-based, well-trained external and internal security intelligence body from the Mosaics. American also has a lot of based security-wise organized by the CIA. Somebody asked me a question from the East and said, he's from so place, and he don't see why the police and this security this. I said, okay, if you go into your own village, so place, so village, and he said, how did you know? I said, you have something that looks like a farm there. You say yes, or a little factory. You say yes. Who are the people managing it? The CIAs. How many
in some parts of Nigeria?
Yes. So how many SSS or NIA personnel knows that they are CIA? That is a CIA base. None.
So is that an undercover operation? Or something?
Yes. They have more information about our country than we. And that is what happens all over the world. They are everywhere. They are blacks, white, color, whatever. And we don't have the mechanisms to detect who they are. And that is what happens in Iran. So, Iran, who were the people that attacked Iran first? Israel did. What is the offense of Iran?
They say they are siding with, the Hamas. They are giving them resources.
How did you know they are siding Hamas? How?
You don't think they probably have intel? They probably have intel to that effect or something.
It is just a provocative attack. We went to South Africa when there were apartheid, for example. We wasted over 60-something billion in South Africa.
Who
Nigeria
did?
did. Yes.
As a big brother.
Not as a big, yes, if you call it a big brother, I agreed. But who attacked us?
So you're saying we had no business doing that?
We have no business doing that. You can't be living in poverty and be playing a game of big brothers. As our people are being harassed in South Africa, what can we do? Can we say because we invested 60-something billion in South Africa? How much did we invest in Liberia, in Sierra Leone? How many Nigerians are there? You don't, as a government is a business. Governance is a business. So I will not come to aid you without receiving back.
So nothing goes for free?
Nothing. Is there free meal in Freetown? So America will not back Israel if there is no benefit from Israel. All the intellectual properties of Israel goes back to America.
Okay, so let's just, introduce a new perspective, Prof. Excuse me. For example, now, just yesterday, Iran has also hit back at Israel. And some people will say, well, maybe we are even now. After all, the U.S. hit Iran, Iran hit Israel. But where do you see all of this going?
You see, this is what is happening. The hitting on Iran is a provocation to touch North Korea. And when North Korea reacts, you should know that the mighty ones like China is going to react.
How about Russia?
Russia is going to be the last point.
Why is that? Because of Donald Trump's relationship with Putin?
Very good. That is one point. And let me tell you, America is going to withdraw.
At some point?
They are going to withdraw. Because one, America is facing serious economic issues right now. Two, the assembly, which is the Senate and the House of Representatives or whatever house it is.
That's the U.S. Congress now.
The U.S. Congress are not going to approve to this. And Donald Trump quickly struck to also make Benjamin Netanyahu to believe that they are behind him. So it's a tactical advice from the National Security Body of America that you quickly hit now so that Israel will be comfortable that we are in support of them. So when the Congress will raise the issue up, it will not be the Congress.
I've done my best.
I've done what I am supposed to do. I've tried to convince the Congress, and I cannot override the Congress.
But, sorry, Prof, I'm just curious for a second. If the same Congress could approve, several tranches of funding, including equipment and armaments for Zelensky in Ukraine, why would the rule be different when it comes to Israel and the entire Middle East?
You should know that this is a new government, and they have a new work path.
So the thinking is
that you also know that the economy, American economy, has never been like this all this while. As we are speaking now, by the time the former president hand over to Trump, I think the debt index was about 12 to 13 trillion dollars. As we are talking, the debt index of American is already rushing to about 40 trillion.
Between when Biden left and when Trump took over?
Yes.
And this is a matter of a few months.
Yes. So if you watch that and if you look at it very seriously, you find out that America is facing a lot of economic issues that are hidden from the public. So if you know what they are hiding, what is hidden from the public, and what they want the public to know, this is not the time, a good time for Americans to go into any war. They tactically not want to wash their dirty linings economically to the public when they said they withdraw the US aid. They withdraw the US aid not because they want to withdraw the US aid. They withdraw the US aid because they know that America is running into economic collusion and they are collapsing seriously. So in that doing, they are only proving that they are still a superpower, not wanting the world to know that they are not as they believe they were yesterday.
Interesting. But let's, let's look at this whole thing from a different angle altogether. You can't talk about, tension between Israel and Iran and not have it reverberate across the entire Middle East. I mean, that whole Arab world, as we often call it. Some people say from the way it's going, Israel is becoming even more provocative now, so much so that there's a chance the neighboring countries will begin to take side with Iran, and of course, in light of the Gaza development and issues like that. Is that your thoughts?
You see, over time when Israel was playing the kind of the cartridge game with other nations in Arab, they actually took for granted most of the Arab nations, not knowing that nations like Iran, Turkey, and the rest will spring up, knowing that they also have some materials to do themselves, and they have gone into a lot of research templates. And this research template has yielded science, engineering, and technology, has made them build their military, build their security bases, build their technology, and build their infrastructure. So they are no longer looking at Israel as that big threat
to them.
They are only being quiet and silent to see when these kind of issues will come up. Israel is a very small nation, very, very small nation, that playing the game they were playing without accommodating their neighbor was a very good suicide for Israel. Over time, that is the lapses that Israel was having. They know they were small, they know they were not backed, because you cannot say, okay, Israel is 50% Muslims or 50% Christian, so that the other nations will embrace maybe the Christians or embrace the Islam and said, okay, because of Islam, because they are Muslims, because they are Christians, we should always at least play that brotherly feud with them. They refuse to associate with the other nation. Instead, they parallel themselves into what we call I don't want to go into psychology, but let's go into security, what we call global disintegration. They disintegrate themselves, separate themselves from other nations.
Yes.
And it was the resultant effect is what we are seeing today. And not only that, they secluded themselves from other parents of organizations. They don't belong to any national organization where other nations has to speak. Playing the game of we can stand our chances.
All right, Prof, we're going to take a quick break at this point. Quite an interesting development. We're saying in the Middle East and how much it is impacting conversations around global diplomacy, economy, and so on and so forth. Economy is important because we are hearing now that, well, in disguise, this could be more like a blessing for Nigeria, that the prices of crude will shoot up on account of this heat that was pulled on Iraq just yesterday by the United States. But beyond the economic blessing, so to speak, that comes with it, how much more trouble is the Middle East and indeed the world will be in going forward? We'll find out when we return from this short break. Please stay with us. All right, thank you for staying with us, everyone. So, Prof, let's look at what all of this means going forward now, because whether you like it or not, you said the U.S. will pull out at some point by your own assessment. But whether the U.S. pulls out or not, the U.K. is now saying this is the best time to de-escalate. But we also understand that all is not very well on the ground in Iran, that there are those people who are also against this government under Ayatollah Khamenei. Let's talk about domestic, or if you like, internal issues that may be shaping this war as it stands right now.
You know, all over the years, the CIA and American operatives on diplomatic line has tried to penetrate the Iraqi security line on process of actually changing the scape of things in Iran. And so that they have not been able to penetrate all this while. Trying to do that is just to make sure they plant one of theirs in the link of things in Iran. If you think this will be an opportunity for them to do that or achieve that, I will not say they are going to get it, and I will not say they will not get it. But then, what rank or route are they following to get it achieved? That will be very, very serious issue, because the leader of Iran is the Islamic leader of the nation.
Right.
And the most populous religion in Iran is Islam. And it will be very, very difficult for them to achieve that, because after the Iraqi issue, Iran has prepared themselves and their security architecture has changed over time. And I can tell you for free that they change their security language every 2 years. Iran changed their security language
for security reasons, I guess.
Yes, every 2 years, and sometimes not even up to 2 years. So if you are watching very well, Nigerians don't even have a security language. My problem is African mostly. We are not prepared. We are not ready. Even with the tale of things today now, we are not ready.
So you're saying Iran does not have a standard language, if you like, some sort of lingua franca?
No, security languages are different.
Okay,
from the normal language.
Okay, from the civic language.
Yes. We are not even so my problem is African. The African security system is not wired yet. Nigeria is not even in the starting point. So where are we, even as people are saying that this could lead to the Third World War? To me, it's not going to lead to any Third World War. But are we prepared for the crisis? We are not. Are we ready? We are not. Have we sensitized our people? No. Have we given orientation, the primary orientation to our people in case of any eventuality? No. We are waiting and watching. To us, it's a primary issue of Iran and Israel. How does that affect us? Security is not an issue of I am a security chief. It's an issue of tactical strategies and operations, administration and management. So if the administrative arms are not there, what role will diplomacy play? Diplomacy will only play a role when conflict resolutions, crisis management are in tandem with the rules of your country and the international engagement or laws. So if we are thinking that we are going to diplomacy is going to play a key role, what is our primary involvement? And if we are looking at the primary involvement, we should also look at the secondary issues.
Which are what?
On how to, if the primary involvement engagement is not solving the solution, we must have a secondary template that we fall back on. In fact, in security, you are supposed to have, this is the first segment, the primary, the secondary, up to the fifth segment. In case you apply conflict resolution and it didn't work, crisis management did not work, diplomacy did not work, iterative engagement did not work, strategic management did not work, then what other option did you have? You don't just go to war, because war is expensive and costly.
But do these countries don't realize that, or is it a matter of whatever is working out is working well? If they realize war is costly, why would they? For example, I mean, just for perspective, some persons have been talking on social media saying that, look, Iran is not where it should be economically. So why is it pursuing nuclear ambition as against empowering its people socially and economically?
Okay, if you say so, will I, because I am not economically standing, allow somebody to continue to threaten me in my house every day when I have my cutlass and my knife in case I am overpowered? This is just no issue. I have uranium in my house, in my country. That is the position of Iran.
And I want to use it.
I can develop my nuclear weapons without no external intrusion.
But the Western world says that
then I'm coming.
You cannot trust the leadership of Iran to not use it against the world. They even argue that's the reason Donald Trump had to take a preemptive measure.
You are saying Donald Trump, if to the best of my knowledge, Americans don't have uranium.
Yeah, they have nuclear weapon.
Yes, they have 5,000 something warheads. So what are you telling me? You that have no uranium, you have nuclear weapons. You have nuclear armaments. I that I have uranium, you are telling me there is a threat somewhere, you cannot trust me. Why should I trust you?
Okay, let's talk about deals, Prof. The U.S. government, of course, that was in the absence of Trump being the president, had made a deal with Iran, which some persons said was the best. And we all thought the whole world would go back to bed and sleep. But then Trump comes, and then things changes, and then he says, well, I'm making another deal to Iran. They had better accept it. What do you think about these two deals? Let's start with the first one, which was made, I guess, under former President Barack Obama.
if I have a deal with Iran, what is the deal?
Well, I think the U.S. is cutting that short.
So if we are making a deal of benefits and you are benefiting from my deal, I am not gaining, what do you think I should do?
But the Iranian government did accept the other deal before now.
Yes, they accept the deal. It is nothing to write an agreement. And if you write an agreement and I am asking the agreement to be revoked or there should be an addendum to the agreement, will you say no?
It depends on whether there's a clause.
An agreement.
Whether there's a clause to that effect.
No, it is a council. It is a council. I've cried over this studio years, some time ago, when I said we have an agreement with Shell, Royal Dutch Shell.
Right.
So many years ago, going to about 70-something years ago. And up to today, there is no addendum to that agreement. And Shell has used that agreement against us. Are you saying agreement does not expire? Or there must not be call for a forum for an addendum?
Well, I feel it's the Nigerian government that should answer that question. Really.
So that is the same thing. I have a right to call for a referendum to say this agreement that we had cannot longer go on. Why did you have provisional engagement in jobs? You said this is provisional appointment later, and you are under probation for some period. Why didn't you say you are coming to work here and you must stay here for 35 years of your life till you leave? Because the other person has a fundamental right to say, my job here is done. I am going. That is the terms. So you won't impose your agreement on me when it is nothing to do with me. A society, a nation, a country has nothing to do with me as a leader of that country. Most of the agreements we are having, if we sign all the agreements in the world by Bola Ahmed Tinubu, is not binding on the next person coming or the country. And that is why we have the National Assembly. They can invoke any law to say, no, this is not working. And it is binding. So you go back to the drawing board, look at the dotted areas, and go on. That is the way to go. But when you come and say, no, we have a deal, we have an agreement, the agreement lasts forever. So if you have an agreement that our crude oil, for example, is going to be sold at $10, and crude oil is $150, the agreement should still stand that it should be $10. So it is an agreement that cannot withstand time, because time changes. Things changes. The economic dynamics of yesterday is not the economic dynamics of today. The technological dynamics of yesterday is not the technological dynamics of today. The engineering template and management of yesterday is not the same thing today. The science of yesterday is not the science of today. The medicine of yesterday is not the medicine of today.
Okay, let's tie these things up real quick, Prof. Do you think the United Nations can wade into this matter, intervene on some level, and be able to, if you like, help to recalibrate the relationship amongst the nations of the Middle East, especially as it has to do with this tension between Iran and Israel?
I will say this from my open mind. If I am a a leader of any nation, I will excuse myself out of the United Nations, because the United Nations is not playing the role they are supposed to play over time.
Do you think the United Nations has overstayed its welcome? I mean, with regards to this conversation.
Very well. Because you cannot have a United Nation that is not united. You cannot have a United Nation where you appoint some people to United Nations Security Council, where some nations and some even continents are not members of such council. It is already known for some people who may be thinking alike. So if we want justification, if we want being united, then we should know that it is not about the United Nations. The United Nations is not playing, is playing a lame game. You shouldn't tell me somebody is more superior than the other. So the issue of superiority and inferiority is being played out in the United Nations. To me, if I am leading any nation, I will excuse myself out of the United Nations. Straightforward. Because there is no benefit to the average black man from the United Nations.
I think the conversation around the UN is quite a complex one, because there are those who argue that, well, the UN is not serving the purpose for which it was set up in the first instance. I think
that is why I said I will excuse myself from the United Nations.
Why are these countries? I mean, Africa has been complaining about having a permanent seat on the UN Security Council. Why complain for this long when you know you have the option of walking out the door?
Yes, you see, the problem with Africans is that a lot of people who are leaders of Africa don't even know the African history. And they don't even know their domain. They don't even know where to give service to and where not to give service. So in a serious thinking of I must be a leader, you have no reason to have anything to drop. In a debate, you must have an upper hand. You must have a reason why you want to excuse yourself. You must have a reason why you know that you have been marginalized. You can't just go to any forum and said, today I've excused myself from this forum without giving tangible reasons. You can't start discussing your own people when you don't know their history. You can't discuss people when you don't know the pains and the tragedies and the tragic system of those people. You don't go to forums and discuss your people when you don't have any index to show what your people are going through. So we don't have our own personal environment. There are questions you throw to leaders in Africa today, and they will be looking at each other because they don't even know where to start answering you.
I think you and I will have to talk about all of these multilateral institutions at some point, whether it's the United Nations, the African Union, or even the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, but quite a lot to unbundle on the program. I'd like to say a big thank you to you, Professor, for coming on the program today.
Thank you very much.
We'll be talking with Professor Ibrahim Abubakar, is Global Television in-house political and security analyst, helping us to find perspectives and context with regards to this tension that has moved now from, as it sees, the Middle East to the western part of the world. That again has been accentuated by the strikes that the U.S. actually did make on Iranian nuclear sites yesterday. We're taking a quick break shortly. My colleague Jemai Manson will be here to talk about the International Widows Day and how we can help the widow to lead, regardless of the loss she has suffered. All of that coming shortly. Please do stay with us.